feel like we're besties now after this. What's up, guys? It's Denise Salcedo. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Speak Now Pro Wrestling. It is the November 3rd edition of Dynamite, and we have quite a bit to get into here today. But before we get started, I want to welcome you all into the show. Thank you so much for taking the time of the day to come and listen or watch this show. I really appreciate it. This was an interesting Dynamite because I think for the most part, there wasn't all that much. I wouldn't say there was that much buzz heading into this show in terms of like big matches. Like you obviously have, the TBS women's tournament is continuing. You also have the Eliminator, the AEW World Title Eliminator tournament continuing as well. But for the most part, there really wasn't like that much buzz going into the show. And then unfortunately, we had some breaking news that Tony Khan revealed last night about Jon Moxley. And that's sort of been like one of the main topics that everybody has been talking about. So that was also something that, changed plans on today's show. And, different things were mentioned and different things were brought up and all of that. So we are going to get into that later today. But for the most part, I thought that given that this show didn't have a lot, wasn't like a really big show. I thought it was an entertaining show that flew by. It was kind of to the point where I immediately kind of forget. Like I've been losing track these last couple of weeks. I think last week and then this week, I've been losing track of the times while watching Dynamite. For some reason, I'm always under the assumption that I still have like half hour, maybe an hour left. And I look at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, Denise, like the show's about to end in 10 minutes and you haven't even promoted your show. Hurry up, So I've been losing track of the times for the show. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing because that means that the show is at least, entertaining. So I'm glad that I've been losing track. It's a positive thing. It's a positive thing. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and chat about everything that went down on today's show. But I do want to remind you all, if you want to take part in this stream, this is a very interactive stream. Feel free to send in any of your thoughts, any of your comments. I will be reading them. So take part in the chat. And if you do want to help me out, you guys can send in a super chat. If you do send in a super chat, you get your comment, question, or statement read on this stream. And it is 100% guaranteed I will read your comment. Additionally, F4W does allow me to keep 100% of the proceeds from all super chats. So if you do send in super chats, they help me out very much. Keep me fed, keep me funded, etc. So we're going to get into the show, but first and foremost, I'm going to read the first super chat of the day. And this one is from none other than my good friend, Reggie Simmons, who says, let's get this show started with the voice of the post-show wrestling, Denise Salcedo. Thank you so much, Reggie Simmons, always sending in so much love and positive vibes on the stream. After all, it is a podcast party. So let's get into this, everybody. We actually have another super chat. This one was from Darth Steven, a good fan here of the show, who says, good show, and we're praying, cheering for you, Moxley. Let's go ahead and talk about that, to sort of kick off the show, guys, because, obviously that is going to be a topic that you were going to be talking about it. You can't necessarily just walk around it and all of that. So last night, Tony Khan essentially sent out a tweet, and I'm going to pull up Tony Khan's Twitter profile for a second here so I can read the tweet verbatim. But Tony Khan basically sent out a tweet that kind of shook a lot of people because absolutely nobody was expecting whatsoever to, essentially find this out. So Tony Khan tweeted out, quote, Jon Moxley has allowed me to share with you that he is entering an inpatient alcohol treatment program. Jon is a beloved member of the AEW family. We all stand with him and Renee and all of his family and friends as he shifts his focus to recovery. He then goes on to add that Jon is making a very brave choice to get help, and we're embracing his choice and supporting him however we can. He continues on by saying, I'm proud to call Jon a friend, and like many of you, I'm also a fan of Mox and look forward to a time in the future where he is eventually ready to return to the ring. Until then, thank you for supporting Jon and respecting his privacy at this time. So that kind of really, when I found out the news, I probably saw the tweet maybe 5-7 minutes after Tony Khan had posted it. And I was just kind of like, what? it's one of those things where you really don't, you don't expect these kinds of stories to come out. And that's obviously because you don't know what's going on, in people's personal lives behind closed doors, etc. So it was pretty shocking. But the one thing that I will say that immediately, the thing that I think made me happy, and I know it made a lot of other people happy, was how much like love and support and positivity there was around the fact that Jon Moxley actually went out to seek help. And in a way, like it's kind of like the blessing in disguise sort of deal. Obviously it's not a positive, good situation to be in. We know that, right? But the fact that he was able to actually go out and seek help, a lot of people, that is still like a hard thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. And, that's one of the things people have been trying to put, like, people have been trying to send the message out there. If you're struggling, whether it's from depression or suicide or, alcoholism, whatever your issue may be, like, there have been a lot of people pushing for people to go out there and seek help. And I feel like it's not always, I don't feel like you get to see very many stories where people actually go out and seek help. Like, this is one of the stories where I'm like, oh my God, like, oh, good. Like, it's good that, obviously he had the awareness and all of that to go and seek help. So that's obviously a positive in that. But it is one of those things where, and I'm glad that Tony Khan also mentioned this, because he was a guest today on Wrestling Observer Live with Brian Alvarez and Mike Sempervive. And basically he talked about, how he had just found out the situation with Jon Moxley probably a couple of days ago, or he said within a couple of days. And, he kind of just pointed the fact that, wrestling isn't everything. Like, obviously here, it's my job to come out here and talk about wrestling, etc. But at the end of the day, it's not everything, because, family and health and all of that is just so much more important. And that's the bigger picture. That's the more important thing. And I also wanted to point out that, having obviously, Jon Moxley and Renee, they're all celebrities and all of that. And we're used to sort of seeing celebrities, personal information on social media, on the news. It's something that's talked about all the time. But it's also one of those things where I feel like if this were me, like, putting myself in this situation, it would be very, very hard to have that stuff out there and have people that, don't know me, critiquing and analyzing and, basically, there's always going to be trolls online and all of that. So I just feel like having that information out there, it's obviously not easy for the people involved, but I think in this way, it may have inspired a lot of other people that may have had or are suffering with similar issues. Maybe, just maybe, you just never know how this may have impacted somebody else's life by seeing, a celebrity essentially go through this. So we'll talk about this more later once we get to the CM Punk promo and once we get to the Miro Orange Cassidy match. But I do want to kick off this stream as well by just basically sending love to Jon, to Renee. Renee, I obviously got to do an interview with her and talk to her for like a full hour. She was very, very kind to me. She did not have to do that interview with me, and she did. And I just have so much respect for that. And so I send them like a lot of love. But we're going to go ahead and kind of swerve back into the show, and we'll probably talk about it we'll definitely talk about it as we continue on with the comments and everything. But here we go, guys. Let's get into this. We're going to kick off this show. So we are, oh my God, it's so crazy. But I was looking at my calendar, and I'm going to be at AEW Full Gear, and I didn't even really realize how close we are to Full Gear. Like, obviously I realized it, but when you're looking at the calendar, when you're looking at the actual thing, you're like, shit, it's almost time for AEW Full Gear. And so this is the second to last Dynamite before Full Gear. We're I think 10 days or so away from Full Gear. So we're definitely nearing the big show, the big event. So that's one of the things to definitely keep in mind when we're talking about AEW here today. But we kick things off with our opening match, which was Kenny Omega versus Alan Angels. And this was essentially announced earlier today that this match would be taking place. I was like, all right, cool, harmless. I wasn't expecting this match, but I'm totally cool with it. It makes sense with everything that they have been telling, the whole scheme of the story. It's been good. So heading into this match, I was kind of like, all right, cool. It wasn't necessarily, I don't think I had the reaction of like, oh my God, I can't wait to see this match. That really wasn't my reaction, but I knew it was still going to be an entertaining match. So for the most part, I will say that it was an entertaining match. We had Alan essentially go right into the attack. We saw a nice drop kick from Alan, and then his momentum kind of gets slowed down during this match when Omega just literally kicks him in the ribs, and it really slows down his momentum that he had when he first started off this match. We then continue to see him kind of get back on his feet here. We see a nice moonsault from Alan Angels. He then does a crossbody right after that. He goes for a pin, but it's a 2 count. Kenny Omega then hits Alan with a V trigger and goes for the pin, and Alan kicks out of it. After this, for the finish, he hits him with 2 more V triggers, and that is how he is essentially able to get the pin. Personally, I do think that the match should have been over after the first V trigger, because at the end of the day, like, they're still at different levels. I like that they gave Alan a lot during this match, but I did think that the finish was a little bit not as believable for me. I think had they ended it after the first V trigger, it would have been a little bit more believable for me, at least. Post-match, we then see Kenny Omega is going to essentially, he's teasing the fact that he's going to hit the one-wing angel on Alan onto a chair, and the crowd senses that obviously somebody has to come help him out, so everybody's chanting cowboy shit, cowboy shit. He comes out, Hangman Page comes out, and he goes right in for the buckshot lariat, but Kenny Omega sprints the hell out of there, and obviously he doesn't end up hitting him with it again. But my favorite part was literally just like Hangman Page basically telling them, like, you know what, 10 days left and I'm going to have that bout. And I also liked that commentary right away basically alluded to the fact that Hangman Page is the most confident that he has ever been. And that's been such a major part of the story, where it's like, oh, Hangman Page lost his confidence and, now he's gaining it back. And now, we're, like he said, 10 days away from the show, and he definitely has all of his confidence back. So I did like that they added to that, and that they kind of, basically re-inform the people like, hey, you're getting Hangman Page at his very best at AEW Full Gear. So for the most part, I will say that I thought this opening segment was good, and I like this, guys, and I like that we're obviously getting Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page. And go ahead and send in your thoughts. How did you guys feel about this opening match, Kenny Omega versus Alan Angels? How did you feel about Hangman Page coming out and essentially helping him out, etc.? Send in your thoughts, everybody. I'm going to go through a couple of these comments and see what everyone is saying over here. We got a comment from Taylor Cannon, who says that the Omega match was definitely entertaining, and they've been nailing it too. They really have been nailing the opening matches on AEW. So they've definitely been doing a good job of that. Let's see what else we got here. Let's go through some comments here. And let's see. All right, I've got a lot of people talking about Moxley's book, so that's good to know. I definitely need to get the book. I've read a lot of the excerpts. Oh my gosh, I can't speak anymore. That are on Twitter, floating around and whatnot. And based on what I've seen from those, I'm just like, oh man, like he completely went all in and, really shared his like full authentic thoughts. At least I think I've read like 3 excerpts. Why can't I say excerpts? Am I saying that right? Oh, this is embarrassing. Everybody, please ignore that. Please ignore that. All right, let's go through a couple of comments here. Let's see what people are saying. This is a comment from Major Blood, who says that those AEW pay-per-views can really sneak up on you sometimes. I don't know, like, maybe it's because, they don't happen every month. I don't know what it is. It's just time is flying by really fast, guys. Here's a comment from R. Riggs, who says that this was a nice, well-worked match. As a last-minute adjustment, they were still able to add some story elements. Lots of bigger matches later, but still a really fun match. And it was going to be that. It was definitely going to be that. Leonard Aarons III says, I'm glad they didn't crush Allen straight away. The man got signed because he didn't roll over for Omega a year ago, so it was a proper that he didn't tonight. Kenny made it a point to really smash him. And I also appreciated the fact that they kept bringing that up and that they didn't just forget about this match that they had before. I mean, this is a match from like April, I think I wrote it down. Yeah, it was April 22nd, the April 22nd Dynamite edition. the Dynamite edition, April 22nd, 2020. So that was, it feels like centuries ago, but I'm glad that they were actually incorporating this a lot into this match and really making sure that people knew, like, hey, we've gotten this match before. This is what happened, and this is why this match means something now. So I did appreciate that. We got a comment from KW who says, Adam Page's promo was great. He found his confidence. No more anxious millennial cowboy. Now it's all about that cowboy shit. And that was my favorite thing when, what was it, last week or the week before that, when Hangman Page essentially came out and started talking about cowboy shit and what cowboy shit means, essentially, you know, falling down and getting back up on your horse. Definitely a perfect metaphor to use for this specific storyline. So I definitely agree, liked that. The Cooge 97 says, you cannot get enough V-Triggers. I love the crunching boom punishment it gives you out of the, it gives to the opponents. Excuse me, I read that wrong. Yeah, I agree. It's always really fun to see. But again, I still agree with myself. I agree with myself that I still think it should have just been the one and the pin, and that's it there. But let's get through a couple more comments. This one is from Ryan Redman, who says, because Omega is so small and doesn't look like a threat to anyone, it makes sense that he has competitive matches with even job guys. Wait, what? What? Wait, Kenny Omega's not small. Kenny Omega, I don't see Kenny Omega as a small guy. I don't see him as a small guy. Sour Machine Gun says, I just wish they would have Hangman and Kenny address their history more. Feel like they have barely even mentioned one of the best stories in recent wrestling. I think this is okay. So when we were on We're Live, Pal, Garrett was asking Andrew, Steve, and I if we thought that Hangman Page should defeat Kenny Omega at AEW Full Gear. And my opinion was yes. And the reason for that is and I used it to describe it as like they were really, really pushing, you know, this story with Kenny Omega and with Hangman Page, right? And everybody thought that it was going to be happening at AEW All Out. That's when everybody thought this match was going to happen. That's when everybody thought we were finally going to see Hangman Page become champion. And then, you know, things changed. Hangman Page took the time off that he needed to take off for personal reasons. And then we ended up, you know, swerving into this match with Christian Cage and Kenny Omega. For me, I kind of feel like that kind of like, it kind of impacted things a little bit in the sense where I didn't buy that they weren't going in the direction of Kenny Omega and Hangman Page for AEW All Out, because that to me felt like it felt like the feud was, you know, this is a story that they've been telling for a long time, right? But it felt its strongest right before Hangman Page left. Right before Hangman Page left, that's when the story to me felt the strongest, where it's like, okay, you know, we've got it rumbling now. Like, we need this thing to explode, man. Like, this is it. And then, you know, Hangman Page takes the time off, and it did kind of put obviously a huge pause into that. And then we went into something else, and now we're sort of circling back. And now that we've circled back, we obviously have this whole story that they've been telling for a very long time now. So we do have all of that. But for me, it still felt stronger. The story felt stronger before Hangman Page left to take some time off. And I don't necessarily feel that it's as strong as it was then. I think people are still very passionate. And I know I'm passionate for this story just because I want to see Hangman Page, Kenny Omega, and because I want to see Hangman Page have his moment. But in terms of like I don't know, in terms of the excitement, in terms of I don't want to say excitement. I don't think excitement's the right word. I just think that it felt to me a lot hotter right before Hangman Page left. So I do kind of feel like, you know, they kind of had to restart that momentum there. And for the most part, it's definitely there, because if it wasn't, you wouldn't be getting those crowd reactions for Hangman Page if it wasn't there. So I think this will, because of how things were essentially paced and, you know, moved around, I think this will affect some people's opinion of the actual story. But you can't forget that they've been telling the story now for a very long time. And you kind of got to, you know, have all of those pieces. Now, let's just say you're a new viewer of AEW and I don't know, you just started watching AEW like last month or something, then maybe it's definitely going to be a lot harder for you to maybe get as invested as maybe some of the other people are in the story. So I can see that argument. But if you've been on this ride for a long time, then I think you'll you'll fill in the pieces for yourself, essentially. So thank you so much for sending in that comment as well. I really hoped I explained that correctly, but let's see what else we got here. This one is from Hodge Gulashi, who says, Omega does feel like the massive star he should these days. He just has that aura when he comes out and how he carries himself. Dude, that's why he's the champion. That's why he's Kenny Omega, etc. It's exactly why. All right, and I know I missed a couple of your guys' comments. I'm very sorry, but if you do send in a super chat, I will make sure to read your comment 100% guaranteed. And this is another one. We got so many different comments on this one, guys. Sorry, I lost track of everybody's comments here. All right, I'm going to get back on board here. This one is from Major Blood, who says, if Hangman somehow loses to Kenny, I think many people are going to lose faith in the booking. That's the other thing, too. It's like you had something, you have something with Hangman Page, and it's like, how many times can you tease him becoming champion and then not necessarily doing it? I almost feel like they have to do it just because now it's been teased so much where it's like, okay, if this doesn't happen now, when? How much longer do we have to wait? That sort of thing. Now, it depends on the story that they tell. Let's say he doesn't win at Full Gear. I hope that it makes sense if he doesn't, but I think they are definitely going to pull the plug on it. I think it's time. It's one of those things where it's like, come on. The timer's ringing. You got to take the cake out of the oven, guys. It's time. All right. And let's go through a couple of, actually, let's go ahead and jump into the next topic here, because after this, let's go into CM Punk, because CM Punk comes out and he essentially, man, this guy, CM Punk has just been, I don't know how to describe it, guys. He's been coming out and since he debuted on AEW, he's been so freaking genuine, so honest, so down to earth in terms of his promos. The second that he came into AEW, one of the first things that he told the people was that he didn't really necessarily like plan out what he was going to say, that he was going to kind of, let the moment and let the crowd and really feel the moment and feel what he was feeling during then to actually be able to come up with the words to describe how he felt. Like he didn't want to pre-plan his feelings, right? And so with that, you ended up getting this awesome return to wrestling promo. Okay, cool. So I feel like he's kept that going, right? But tonight, he kind of went and did the exact same thing, but in a different way. I legitimately felt in this promo that this wasn't CM Punk, the wrestler. This wasn't, CM Punk, the famous guy that we all know and love. The way that he came out today and addressed Jon Moxley and addressed the situation, it felt like himself as a real, human being, person. Like if you were his friend and you were chatting about this privately in your home. Like that's honestly what this felt like. And so because of that, I kind of felt like the second he started talking about it, it was one of those things where you stop doing what you're doing and you listen because he's about to say something that is real. And that's what really hit home with me here, was that this was a real promo here. I don't even want to call it a promo, but whatever. So it's real. He basically talks about Jon Moxley not being there because he has a legitimate reason. He doesn't, obviously go into any details, nothing like that. But he basically says that he doesn't want anyone to criticize him. That he doesn't want anyone to criticize him because he is proud of him. And that's the thing, guys. Like we touched on this at the top of this. One of the things that why a lot of people don't want to ask for help a lot of these times, it's, people are embarrassed. Maybe people don't recognize they have a problem, or, maybe people are afraid of being criticized by others because, there's still people that have this mentality of what somebody has to be. And when you're not that person, there are people that criticize you. And so I like that CM Punk kind of basically said, kind of even shared his own experiences when talking about how Jon Moxley obviously had to take a break and, get some help, and for him not to be criticized because he was goddamn proud of him. And I really like that. He got the people basically chanting John Moxley's name, over and over. So it kind of felt like good. And it wasn't one of those things where they had to come out and explain like, oh, this is what's happening. It wasn't anything like that. You went in there and people knew what was going on, and you didn't necessarily hit us over the head with it, but you obviously, paid respects to it. And then he kind of goes on and takes this a step further. And this seems like something that in hindsight is a very smart thing to do. But if I were probably, if anybody else was probably in CM Punk's position there and talking about this, this could have been easily something that maybe they would have forgotten or not said. So I'm glad that he did say this, was that he basically encouraged anybody that was there in the event or anybody that was watching on TV that, hey, if you're suffering, if you're going through a similar issue, like go out and get help. It's okay. And I really like this, guys. I cannot tell you how much I like this, because it just felt real and it felt authentic. And CM Punk is that guy to do that, and I think that, I don't know if John Moxley was watching tonight. I have no idea. Legitimately, I do not know. But if he were, I'm sure that he would probably would have liked that. Thoughts on this, guys? After this BTW, CM Punk addresses Eddie Kingston and their upcoming bout on Rampage. So go ahead and send in your thoughts, and let's get a couple of these comments that we got here. Let's see what we got. And yeah, pretty much just everybody, honestly, everybody that I'm seeing here, everybody's just happy that, John Moxley's getting the help that they need, etc. And let's go through some comments and see if we got anything. This one's from Darth, who says that he believes that this was Phil Brooks definitely sharing his heart. That's pretty much like what it was, guys. I cannot say this. Carney Business says, what a stand-up dude, love this promo. I don't know anybody who did not like this promo at all. Honestly, everybody's just writing how they definitely enjoyed this promo, and I agree too. This is a comment from Justin Martin, who says that was definitely a great classy move by Punk to make the moment about Moxley that was spoken by Phil Brooks, the human being. Then CM Punk, the wrestler, transitioned to the promo about Kingston. Yep, that's exactly it. You had him, not the wrestler, and then transitioning into CM Punk, the wrestler. So it was nice to see, and those two differences were made very, very clear. This is a comment from Nashville Lou, who says, the notion of having the courage to seek help as being a sign of strength and not an admission of weakness is something you normally wouldn't expect from a wrestling show. Tremendous. And that's kind of like the thing that I think they wanted to make sure that they hit home, that, hey, especially that men are always judged differently on this, where it's kind of like, oh, men aren't allowed to cry, or oh, men aren't allowed to show weakness, which is BS, right? But there are still a lot of people that feel that way. There's the whole, well, I won't say any names, but the whole when men were men thing, that whole thing, if you guys all remember that. So it's one of those things where it's like, so what? Like, if you're a guy and you have issues, like, everybody has issues because you're human, and just because you're a man does not mean that you have to like push them away, like if they don't exist, So I agree with this. It was nice to basically say, like, you're allowed to feel this way and get help. You're allowed to get help. That's the thing. Chris Ludek sends in a super chat. Thank you so much to Chris, who says, great show of class by CM Punk, and for Moxley to be a man enough to realize he needs help should be commended. I know all the fans have his back. It was very nice. I will say this, like, I feel like every time there's, being on social media all the time sometimes can get a little like, oh, it can mess with your head, man. And you see this a lot. And some people are a little bit stronger than others. And then some people are just, could roll it off. And then it also depends on the day that, it is. There's some days that you can roll off the negative comments. There's days that you can't roll off the negative comments. But it's just one of those things where you always see, fighting on social media, especially as somebody like me that I'm always on Twitter. I'm always seeing people fighting nonstop, right? And you always see that. So sometimes you forget that there's actually a lot of good people on like social media, a lot of good people there and a lot of positive people there. And the second this news came out of Jon Moxley, like I saw those negative comments and like right away I was like, nope, shut this down. This is not happening on my timeline. But there were negative comments, but I will say that in terms of other topics, this one was completely over. There was just so much more love than there was negativity versus some other stuff that I've seen on the internet where it's like all negativity or like half and half, and you're just like, oh my God. No, this one was definitely overshadowed by a lot of love and respect and support for Jon Moxley, which was very, very nice. So thank you so much for Chris who sent that in, that comment in. All right. And here we go, guys. Let's get into this next topic here. And this one is Miro. All right, guys. So poor Miro, man. Poor guy. So he comes in and he cuts this promo and he starts off saying, quote, "My God, I cursed you. I warned you. I threatened you. Then I waited patiently. It looks like I'm back now, you know, in the title reigns, etc." He says, when I look up at you, do you see fear, or you look like fear, something like that. But then he kind of keeps going on and he ends this promo by basically saying, because obviously, you know, he's announced as the replacement for Jon Moxley and he's going to be facing Orange Cassidy. So now he's, you know, taking part in this AEW world title eliminator. So he basically says, quote, "I need to prove myself to her." Then he goes on to say, "I will be champion, I will be forgiven, I will be loved, and then you'll be forgiven." So what we got from this promo, and this is not the first time he's made a mention of this. He's been mentioning CJ Perry a lot, you know, his wife on a lot of his promos, right? But a couple of weeks ago, he also mentioned that, you know, that he hadn't, like ever since he lost the championship, that he hasn't been sleeping at home, etc., etc. And then he comes in today and he's like, "I haven't been loved." This is brilliant stuff, guys. Like, this is literally so freaking funny. Like, I love this. And it's gotten to the point where I'm like, all right, it's like, when is CJ going to come into AEW? Like, damn, he's been mentioning her so much in all of these promos. And I love how, like, you know, he's essentially, you know, being punished for losing the championship and, you know, she's upset at him or whatever. I love that. And I kind of hope that we get a like payoff to this where, you know, we see CJ Perry coming in and I don't know, doing something with, freaking Miro. So we'll see. I love this. This is a fun promo and it made me feel sympathy for Miro, where I was like, man, now I kind of want Miro to win this whole thing. He has his life and his wife at stake, man. You got to have sympathy for Miro there, guys. Let's see what we got here. We got a comment from Major Blood who says, "Miro is just great. Redeemer is a great gimmick, and just seeing him just be dominant is chef's kiss." I agree. It's chef's kiss. Somebody's asking if she's going to go to, if Lana, CJ Perry is going to go to AEW, if she'll come out at Full Gear. I don't know, but I will say this much. If she doesn't eventually at some point make an appearance on AEW, I don't understand why. I mean, I don't know what she wants, right? I don't know, but she just has a lot of personality and she is, in my opinion, she's genuinely likable. And I've been a fan of Lana's like since the very beginning. And like, she kept me through, man. Like you know, no matter what she did, I was always a fan of hers. Like she's just so easily likable. So I want to see her come out in AEW. Like, I think she just has like such a badass personality and I want to see her do something with Miro. And especially the fact that he's been mentioning her nonstop. You gotta give us a little something, right? Hopefully. And let's go through a couple more comments here. And this one is from Robert Bailey Jr., who says, "Really saw him as a second challenger for Paige's title after Moxley, being that Miro has a lot to prove, and how ironic how Paige's weakness is his drinking ? Really hope he wins it all." So in terms of like, yeah, with Miro, you know, ever since he lost the TNT championship, it's kind of been like, all right, well, where do you go from here? There hasn't really been like, he's been doing these promos, right? But there hasn't really been anything else. And I did think that his TNT championship reign should have gone a little longer personally, but that's how I feel about a lot of reigns, where I always want those long title reigns. So I did want to see him be champion for a lot longer. I do think that they could have done a lot more with him as champion, but I guess it is what it is, right? So hopefully now they kind of find something else to kind of jump him, because obviously he was added to this because of the circumstances, not necessarily because he was supposed to be in this. So hopefully they find a way to use him creatively, which I think they will. If they found a way before, because it took him a long time to get to that TNT title spot, and then he got there. It ended rather quickly. So I do hope that he kind of gets back up there, because these promos have been great. They have been truly great. And let's go through. This is a comment from Josh Bowen, who says that overall, this was an awesome show tonight. Not one segment was boring. Tonight was so good. Yep, it flowed really fast, man. Really, really fast. And shout out to Hector Rodriguez, who's in the stream here and says he didn't watch tonight. So thanks for the recap. Thank you, man. I would definitely check out some of the portions of the show, because there were some really good stuff on there. And all right, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here. We have an attack. The Elite is backstage. They're doing their thing. They end up getting attacked by Luchasaurus and Christian Cage. Obviously, they're pissed off for, their actions, throwing Jungle Boy, practically killing him when they tossed him off that stage. And they end up fighting from the backstage area onto the from portion of the stage. So they end up by the stage. And what you see here, what followed, was a bunch of pretty cool spots. You see them start to fight backstage, right? And then they end up in the front. And as they're kind of, near the stage, the camera is closed in on the guys as they sort of, brawl and do their thing. And then out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere, Jungle Boy just comes out leaping from the stage area and onto the pile of guys. And I'm thinking, for a second, I didn't even know it was Jungle Boy. I was like, who is that? And they were like, oh, it's Jungle Boy. And I was like, oh, shoot, it's Jungle Boy. So that was pretty fun. He really came out of nowhere. We see Christian spear Matt Jackson. We see Nick Jackson coming in to help his brother. We see a Hurricanrana from Jungle Boy to Matt Jackson. We see Luchasaurus chokeslam. Oh, this is my favorite part. Luchasaurus literally chokeslams Nick Jackson onto Adam Cole. And this was cool because Adam Cole was kind of on his knees. So, his back was all exposed, and he literally chokeslams him right onto his back. That was sick. All right. That was sick. Like, if you're Adam Cole, oh, that must have hurt like hell. So I liked that. I thought that was a pretty fun spot there. After this, you see Jungle Boy essentially lock in Adam Cole in a snare trap. And then you see, oh, yeah. And then after this, you see Adam Page. Oh, my gosh, guys. You see Adam Page. My bad, guys. My bad. You see Christian Cage essentially get Adam Cole's head onto the freaking chair, and then he gets another chair and literally slams him in the head with it. Guys, all these Pages and Cages and Adams were confusing me for a second. I was like, what the hell is going on here? But anyways, this was a pretty cool segment. I thought the beatdown in the beginning was kind of a little bit lame because everybody was just like walking and just throwing a couple punches. But then as it progressed and like the second, Jungle Boy came into the action, and once they started getting onto the actual platform, that's when this got really good. So I did like this overall, and yeah, it was fine, guys. Send in your thoughts here. Let's see what you guys said here. This one is from Taylor Cannon, who says, I love that whole segment. Somebody was asking, where was Marco Stunt? I didn't see Marco Stunt on there. I did not see Marco Stunt on there. And let's get through a couple more comments. And this one is from, let's see. We got so many people just like laughing about this. This one's from Edward Gonzalez, who says that was some badass non-match brawls tonight. It was fun. It definitely picked up. That's for sure. And all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next topic here. But let's see what we got here. This one, actually, I'm going to read this comment first. This one's from Robert Bailey Jr., who says, I know it's retaliatory for Cage to hit the chair on Adam Cole, but it was very heelish to a degree, maybe foreshadowing Jungle Boy should watch out. Well, they've been doing this for a long time. Like, they were planting those seeds where, like, you knew at some point, you're not exactly sure when, but you knew at some point that Christian Cage was bound to turn on Jungle Boy. Now, we kind of forgot about that because they've been pretty good friends, but for a while, they were planting those seeds, and then they kind of stopped. So maybe maybe that's what this could be, or maybe it's one of those things where it's like, all right, we've sort of seen, what was it, last week? Jungle Boy was essentially, calling people out, calling the elite out, etc., all in his own, which ended up being his demise. But at the end, you're kind of seeing Jungle Boy kind of take on, kind of be a little bit, I don't know what's the right word. Like maybe be more of a jungle man instead of a jungle boy. Like he's going out there and he's a little bit more edgier. He's a little bit more hardcore, man. So maybe that's the influence with Christian Cage. Either that or we're getting those seeds being planted once again. So thank you to Robert Bailey Jr. for bringing that up as well, because I almost forgot to completely mention that there. And all right, guys, let's go ahead and move on. Everybody's marking for the jungle man, jungle dude. Let's move on. All right, so after this, we got Samurai del Sol and Aerostar teaming up to face off against FTR for the AAA tag team titles. And this was one of those things where I was very, very happy when this match was announced. Tony Khan broke the news on Wrestling Observer Live, basically saying that this match was going to happen. And I was like, hell yeah. So when FTR dressed up as, the fake luchadors, I think they were calling themselves the Super Ranas, or they were frogs or something, whatever, right? When they did that, there was a lot of people that did not like that. There was a lot of people that did not like them essentially, pretending to be luchadors when they could very well get luchadors and actually have them come in and, do these awesome matches, right? And there was a lot of backlash, a lot of criticism on that actual topic. So I'm kind of glad that, Tony Khan basically came out and said, I like working with other promotions. I went out and I found two of the very best luchadors to bring in to, wrestle FTR in this match. So I kind of feel like maybe that was brought to his attention and obviously made some changes there. I was very glad when he announced both of these guys. I've liked Aerostar for such a long time now. And then in terms of Samurai del Sol, for those of you guys who do not know, that is Kalisto. And Kalisto was released from WWE on April 15th. And now he's here doing this match on AEW Dynamite. So good for him to be able to get this opportunity. And this was a fun match, guys. So what we got here, we got Samurai del Sol kicking off this match. And right away, you see them kind of, they're going into this match. They're kicking it off really fast. And FTR is kind of taken aback by this. They're obviously not your high flyer type of tag team, right? You know what FTR is, you know what they're going to bring. So I like that they kind of sold the fact that these guys were just way too fast and way too much for them. So I did like that. I like how they kind of like looked a little bit burned out by the speed in which these guys were bringing into this match. After this, you see Aerostar get the tag in. He starts to show off like all his athleticism. You see some really great moments during this match. You see Samurai del Sol essentially doing an awesome springboard front flip onto FTR. You see Aerostar doing a reverse diving headbutt, which looked pretty dope. We see a lot of cool double team action from both of these guys. And then they show that Darby is watching on in this match. So I did like that too. And then in the end, you end up seeing FTR essentially get this win, but they are holding on to the rope. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, they didn't necessarily get this clean victory, but I liked it because obviously they're heels and they shouldn't even be AAA tag team champions. So they are playing to that. So I liked this. I thought this was a fun match. And I really hope, and I really, 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 I'm going to emphasize that, hope that Tony Khan keeps on bringing in more luchadors into AEW, because I do think that obviously incorporating more luchadors will just like spice up the product even much more than it already is. And it definitely fits in with the AEW style. So I do hope we get to see a little bit more of that. But we got a super chat from the Cooge97. Thank you so much. The Cooge97 says, Denise, feliz belated Dia de los Muertos. Happy we got to see AAA's Aerostar y Samurai del Sol esta noche. As a Chicano, me da mucho gusto. Órale. Thank you so much, the Cooge97. I've always wanted to do Dia de los Muertos face painting, but I just don't know how to do it. But I've always wanted to. Unfortunately, I didn't do any celebrations because that was working, but it was nice to see like a lot of people do it. A lot of people celebrate and all of that good stuff. I was like watching the stuff on social media. So that was very nice. Thank you, the Cooch97, for sending in this super chat here. And let's go through a couple more comments here and see what you guys are saying. And this one was from Diel Irazi, who says, maybe it was me, but the lucha match was kind of sloppy. They took so much in doing the lucha match, lucha moves. FTR really helped them out a lot. Honestly, I think it's just a mesh of their styles. I feel like these two guys, you know, obviously they're going to be a lot better in the ring when they're going with guys that can work that type of match. You know, the two very different contrasts in styles. There were a couple moments, I think Aerostar, I think there was 2 spots during this match that maybe they didn't look as crisp. I just think it was more so of their two very different teams, and they just kind of didn't necessarily mesh that well together. But for me, it wasn't enough to take away from that match, because especially Samurai del Sol, in my opinion, he came in there and you can tell he wanted to show off what he can do. You can tell that he had his batteries on and he was like, this is my shot and I need to show the people why they need to have me on this AEW roster. If that was his intentions, if that was, you know, whatever, I think he did just that. Personally, I think so, but I can't necessarily argue with you here. This wasn't the most crisp match, but I'm not going to put the blame on anybody here. I just think it was a mesh of different styles here. And at the end of the day, like, you can't, if this was like the Lucha Brothers versus Aerostar and Samurai del Sol, that would have been badass. If this was Santana and Ortiz versus these two guys, that would have been badass. But it was kind of like FTR and them just kind of didn't necessarily, I didn't think it breeds like an amazing match, but it was definitely entertaining, though. I will say that much. It was definitely entertaining. And let's go through a couple more comments here. And this one is from Wrestle War, who says, if Fuego del Sol doesn't meet his long-lost brother, Samurai del Sol, what are we even doing here? Oh, my God. You know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of, like, the Sol, you know, the sun, and I was thinking of Aerostar, the stars. I was thinking of the suns and the stars. That's what I was thinking about. That's where my brain went. But thank you to Wrestle War for sending in this comment here. And this is a comment from Jared Robertson, who says, genius idea to debut Kalisto against FTR as they work together in NXT well. And we got it. Okay. And let's go through a couple more. This one's from Robert Bailey Jr., who says, really feel that FTR needs that win to cement their legacy, but Lucha Brothers really need to win to establish their reign as legitimate and bringing in more competitive tag team wrestling. Very torn. I'm definitely Lucha Bros all the way, man. All the way. Okay. Lucha Bros all the way right here. Dang. All right. And let's get through a couple more comments. And this one is from, let's see. Oh, we got a super chat. Thank you so much to Christopher Marino for sending in a super chat, who says, it's also cool that FTR is going to AAA to defend the titles. Yeah, they should, right? You would think so. So they should. Like, they made them champions. Now you got to do it. Thank you to Christopher Marino for sending in that super chat as well. And all right, we're going to go ahead and jump into our next topic here. But friendly reminder, everybody, that I will be back on Friday to talk about WWE SmackDown and AEW Rampage. 2 shows in one night, so make sure you guys tune in for that. And then I will be back next week for NXT 2.0 on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, I will be back once again for AEW Dynamite. It will be the Dynamite right before Full Gear. So it's going to be some good times. And then after Full Gear, the day after, I will be doing a post show on here. So that'll be very fun as well. Usually my pay-per-view post shows are my favorite, especially if I was actually there. For some reason, I just think those shows turn out like so much better when you're like actually there and get to experience the entire weekend. We got a super chat from Hagen. Thank you so much to Hagen, who says, Denise, did you book the MMA show last week just so you didn't have to face Luke about not knowing who the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man was? Hagen, I completely forgot to tell Luke about that. Did anybody tell him on the show? Because I didn't watch the show. We haven't talked to Luke and I. So at some point, I do need to bring that up because I completely forgot. I am going to mention that to him because that is hilarious as hell because I did not know who the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man was. All right. If you were here for this, AEW post show last week. You know that I did not know who that was. I thought it was the Pillsbury Doughboy, and everybody laughed at me, and I deserved it. Okay, I deserved it. All right. But anyways, thank you so much to Hagen for sending in that super chat. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, let's jump into the next topic here. So after this, we got the Inner Circle segment, and this Inner Circle American Top Team stuff necessarily hasn't been, my bread and butter, but I've been tolerating it. Okay. It's one of those things where I'm like, all right, this is the part of the show that isn't for me, but I'm going to still have an open mind. Okay. And I've been coming into these segments with an open mind. All right. Now, in terms of what they did here today, there was portions of this that I liked and portions of this that I did not like. So we have Inner Circle coming out and they're basically saying they're going to announce, which members of American Top Team they're going to be facing at Full Gear. All right, cool. The whole pick your poison stuff. Then Dan Lambert comes out and he basically says he wants to get this over and done with and he just wants to get out of this shithole town. And then Jericho and them are trying really hard to get this whole like dipshit thing over with the crowd. And it gets over for like a split second, but it doesn't really stick. And then kind of in the beginning of this, you're seeing Dan Lambert, kind of get like upset at the crowd. And he's like, my face isn't that fat, everybody. I'm sorry. I was not a fan of this. I didn't like this. It was one of those things where I was like, I love Dan Lambert on the mic and I love when he talks shit. Like that's my favorite thing that Dan Lambert does. Like I love when he talks shit about like, this new generation and AEW fans and all of that. Oh, I love that. But I didn't necessarily buy it when he was essentially pretending to get all offended with people basically calling him a dipshit. Like it was one of those things where I was like, I don't really buy this. It's not working for me. So I really wasn't a fan of that. Like I didn't think that it was believable. I didn't think that the selling to the crowd was very believable. So then we go into them actually picking the members of American Top Team and who they're actually going to face. So they first pick Junior Dos Santos. So he's the first one. And then they select Andre Arlovsky. He's the second one. And then they basically say that Austin Vanderford, who's Paige Van Zant's husband, that he wants to step in because he's essentially pissed off with all the things that Chris Jericho said about Paige in the last promo. Okay, so I thought, all right, this is what we're going to get. But instead, Paige has a moment where she's like, nope, I don't need a man. Like, I do not need a man. And I was like, hell yes, girl, you do not need a man. So I liked this. So I did like this portion of it where she's just like, I don't need a man. And, I could take on all 5 of you guys on, etc. She starts saying how she can essentially, beat them up, whatever. And then Jericho spins it around and kind of turns it into like a, oh, you want to take all 5 of us on, that sort of thing. And so I liked that interaction because Jericho and Paige, they got something there. Jericho's really good at doing the whole, everything that he used to do with Stephanie McMahon. They were trying to do that with Paige Van Zandt. For the most part, it was working. I've liked it. Obviously, it's not the same as when he used to do it with Stephanie, but with Paige Van Zandt, it was fine. It was good enough. It was entertaining enough. All right. So I did like this. And then there's another portion where Ortiz basically starts telling Paige, he tells her in Spanish that, hey, is this the mouth that you used to kiss your mother with, right? And Paige is like, what did he say? What did he say? What did Ortiz say? And everybody kind of stays quiet. And then Sammy takes the mic and is like, he says, you're a bitch, something like that, right? That he alluded to her being a bitch. And I just started like dying. That was the best part of this entire thing. Everything that Jericho and Lambert did together did not work for me. What Jericho did with Paige worked for me, and especially what Ortiz and Sammy did, where you have Ortiz talking in Spanish and Sammy pretending like he understood it and kind of just like, I guess you can say, guessing what he thinks he might have said, because they're alluding to the fact that, obviously Sammy, isn't a perfect Spanish, fluent speaker. So this was hilarious. I was a fan of that. That was the best part of this whole thing. And then it was announced that the third person would be Dan Lambert, and Dan Lambert starts going crazy, basically saying that, hey, he wasn't supposed to be part of this, that it's only supposed to be fighters, etc., etc. But whatever. So then he starts freaking out, and that part I did like. I thought that part was good, but everything else before this was not that great. So send in your thoughts. Did you guys love this? Did you guys not love this? I know for the most part, people here haven't necessarily been totally feeling this entire segment here, but we got a comment from Labor Days who says, I like the continuation of Sammy's poor Spanish translations. Oh, I love it. I love it because it's such an easy tease. You have no idea. Okay, so if you're like Hispanic, Latino, whatever, I'm Mexican, right? Everybody knows that already at this point. I'm fluent in Spanish, okay? Now, here's the thing, though. I speak American Spanish. I'm fluent in American Spanish. If I go to Mexico, I can have a conversation, but I cannot talk fast Spanish, okay? And if you've heard fast Spanish, you know what I'm talking about. I cannot talk like that. I speak a slow Spanish, all right? Very slow Spanish, but I can hold a conversation fluently, etc., right? Okay, so but here's the thing, though. If you're like Mexican, like I know this happens because I know a lot of Mexican people. I grew up in a predominantly Mexican area. All my friends were Mexican, literally, okay? So when you're not Mexican, when you are Mexican and you don't speak Spanish, it's one of those things where you're judged, where you're like, you're Mexican and you don't speak Spanish, you get judged for that stuff. And that's why, like, I've always been proud that I can speak fluent Spanish and read fluent Spanish. I can't write fluent Spanish, but I can read it and speak it and understand it and watch my telenovelas and sing along to my favorite songs. But so it's one of those things where, like, you make fun of those people that are Mexican that can't speak that can't speak English. Like you get made fun of. So I like that they kind of do that with Sammy Guevara, because if this was real life, he would be getting made fun of for not speaking Spanish. It's a thing, everybody. So anyway, so I like this, and I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. And it also reminded me, and I tweeted this out, but this reminded me of the Goonies. If you guys watch the Goonies, when you remember when Mouth is essentially translating for the mom, and he's translating to the cleaning lady, and the mom is saying one thing, and then Mouth is translating it into something so much worse. That is exactly what the Sammy Guevara segment reminded me of. So this was hilarious. I love that. It was definitely the best part there. We got a super chat from Mega Flint. Thank you so much to Mega Flint, who says, hey, Denise, you look amazing today. Thank you so much for sending in a super chat and for boosting my confidence. I appreciate it. We got it coming from Dale, who says, I like the segment, but I wish for Full Gear Sammy was doing his own thing because he is a champion. Labor Day says, my grandma speaks so quickly, I just nod through 70% of it. Darf says, I mostly know broken slang Spanish. Danny Spears says, American Spanish, I felt that. Dude, it's totally different thing. I get so, like, and it's one of those things where when people that speak, that are from Mexico and they speak Spanish and then they hear me speak Spanish, like they'll talk shit on my Spanish. And I'm like, damn, bro, like I learned American Spanish. It's a thing, man. I'm from Los Angeles. Like this is the Spanish that I know. But anyways, it's hilarious. But then I get to make fun of the people that don't speak Spanish. You see, guys, everybody's got somebody to make fun of, okay? So while I'm being made fun of the people that can speak perfect Spanish, I can make fun of the people that don't speak any Spanish that are, Mexican. Whatever, it's a whole thing. All right, and let's see what else we got here. I think we got mostly everything here. We got a bunch of Goonies fans, so yay. And Wrestle Wars says it's not just Mexicans, it's all Latinos. I can only speak for Mexicans. I don't know if this is the situation for all Latinos. I can guess that it is, but I can really only speak for the Mexicans because that's Just what I grew up with. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and jump into this next match because we had the TBS Women's Championship Tournament, and it was Jamie Hayter versus Anna Jay. This is the one that I really didn't know which direction they were going to go in here. I think they could have really gone any direction. Now, I will say this much too. I think that so far out of the matches that we've seen from the TBS Women's Championship Tournament, this one was probably the least impressive. I didn't think this one was as good. It was definitely nowhere near Hikaru Shida versus Serena Deeb because that match was amazing. But this match was like very quick. It really wasn't like it really wasn't like out of all the matches, I don't think I'm gonna remember this one. Like when I look at it as a whole, when I look at the tournament as a whole, this is probably the match that I'm gonna glance through. But anyways, we end up seeing what do you call it? So yeah, definitely not on that level here. But afterwards, we do see Jamie Hayter essentially get the win, and she's going to go on to face Thunder Rosa, and that's going to be good. I'm looking forward to that. I definitely think that Thunder Rosa should either take it all the way or at least definitely be in the final. So either of those two options, I'm legitimately good with that there. Post-match, we do see them, Rebel and Britt and Jamie essentially all try to take on Anna Jay. So Ty Conti obviously comes out and, she helps even out the odds. And then we see Thunder Rosa coming out. So I like this. I thought this was good. And we definitely need to see more Thunder Rosa on Dynamite. So I do really hope that she becomes the TBS champion. I'm looking forward to that. Also, while I'm here and before I read your guys' thoughts on this match, I just want to say that if you haven't checked out my interview with Ruby Soho, please feel free to go check it out because I had such a great time chatting with her. It was about a half-hour conversation where we talk about her wrestling Britt Baker. We talk about her, in the TBS Women's Championship Tournament, and she just goes and talks about everything. So it's really fun. You can check out that interview with me and Ruby at youtube.com/Denise Salcedo. That is my channel, which has officially hit 50,000 subscribers. Yay. So please make sure to check out that interview with Ruby. I'm trying to get more interviews, especially with AEW talent. So hopefully if those get good numbers or decent enough numbers, I can get more interviews. Fingers crossed that happens. All right, but let's see what you guys thought. How did you feel about this match? Go ahead and send in your thoughts here. And let's go through a couple more. Let's go through some comments here. I'm trying to get to the part where you guys are all talking about everything. All right. This is from Major Blood, who says, if we're comparing the matches thus far, this was probably the most underwhelming match. Dale says that this match suffered because of the picture-in-picture because it was set up for the after story. And a lot of these matches have been with the picture-in-picture thing. Corey Conway says he didn't like the clothesline finish, and that's her finisher. And this is from Heckman, who says Anna Jay needs more oomph to her move. She just seems slow in the ring, and she'll get better, guys. Like Anna Jay will get better. Like there's definitely potential there, so she'll continue to improve there. And this is a comment from Justin Martin, who says, does anyone else notice that Ty Conti is never out there to help Anna until she's lost a match? I wonder if there's something to that. Maybe they just want to have that moment where she runs in and everybody cheers for her. That's honestly the best that I can think of. Like everybody wants to have that moment where she like runs in and you're like, oh my God, it's Ty Conti. I think that's the reasoning behind that, but I do not know. We got a super chat from Sheldon Jackson. Thank you so much to Sheldon, who says, my question is, why didn't Ty Conti come out with Anna Jay in the first place when she saw Rebel and Britt were there with Jamie? I agree with you. And somebody else, I just read this comment right now, just from Justin Martin, who said the exact same thing. And I agree. She should have came out already. Like she should have been there knowing that they were there. It just makes more sense. But my assumption is they just want to have that moment where she runs down the ramp and everyone's all excited. That's my best explanation for this, guys. If it means something more, we'll find out. But as of right now, that's honestly my best assumption. But she should have been there already. I agree. I definitely agree. Thank you to Sheldon Jackson for sending it in the super chat. I really appreciate it. And shout out to Michael Jefferson. Michael Jefferson, it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Michael Jefferson. Thank you so much for coming into this stream and enjoying a little moment of your birthday here with me today and everybody here in the chat. I appreciate you. Happy birthday, man. And all right, guys, let's go through a couple of more comments. And this one was from Josh Bowen, who says the match was cool for what it was. Love seeing Thunder Rosa post match. Our Rig says I didn't like the interference. Anna Jay just isn't a believable threat yet. It happens, guys, but they got to build her up. They got to build her up, and this is the way to do it. This was the way to do it. All right, guys, and let's jump into, so either way, we're getting Thunder Rosa versus Jamie Hayter, BTW. So I definitely think Thunder Rosa is winning that one. But let's get into MJF and Darby. So we essentially have, this was pretty good. It was okay. I don't think this was, you guys know that I've been loving every single MJF segment. They're usually my favorite part of the show. This one was okay. It wasn't my most favorite, but it wasn't bad whatsoever. MJF is basically coming out on the microphone and he starts talking about how, he doesn't understand why the people boo him and cheer Darby Allin. He says he doesn't understand it. He loses sleep over it. And I'm like, yeah, right, MJF, you do not lose sleep over this. But anyways, he starts to wonder about it. Okay. Then he goes on to starts basically telling off Darby Allin. Now, Darby Allin is just listening. He's literally just watching him and he's just listening. And MJF is just like running his mouth nonstop. So I love the two contrasting things. Like you have MJF on one hand who's just like talking his head off, and then you have Darby Allin who's just like listening, and you always see like these quotes where you're like, the person that's always talking tends to like miss things, etc. Usually is making a fool out of themselves, and that's kind of what we got here with this MJF segment. It was very true to that saying. So MJF starts to tell Darby Allin that he is, quote, a professional wrestler, sometimes a professional wrestler, and then other times a glorified stuntman. I thought that was a fantastic line. I really enjoyed that. And then he basically tells Darby, I'm going to beat you because I'm better than you. And that's that. And then I started laughing. About this internally. Because if this would have, one of the things that I've been talking about with like women's segments in WWE is that they always make the whole, I'm hotter than you. I was just talking about this on NXT last night where they had the whole Mandy Rose essentially telling Io Shirai that she's better than her because she's hotter and that's why she's the champion. And I started thinking to myself, when MJF said that he was going to defeat Darby Allin because he was better than him, I started thinking, man, if these would have been women and this would have been on a different show, they would have had MJF say, I'm going to beat you because I'm hotter than you. Can you believe that? Like, put that into perspective, guys. Please put that into perspective because this was something that I was thinking about as he was saying this. But either way, we see Darby Allin make his way to the ring and MJF bounces, but before he can escape, Sting comes out with his bat, and then he comes out with a bunch of, guys behind him, all like with these, masks on their faces, etc. And so they kind of trap MJF, and MJF ends up in a brawl with Darby Allin, and the Pinnacle ends up going into a brawl with Sting and his guys. So you have that brawl going on, and then you have MJF and Darby going on, and then MJF has this, Darby Allin has this awesome spot where MJF's like on the barricade and you just see Darby Allin like running full speed and literally clotheslining the hell out of MJF. That was such an awesome spot. I really liked that, but this was fun. And at this point in the show, guys, I think this was the point of the show. Nope, not yet. I'm going to save this. Not yet. This was not the point of the show where I realized something. It's the next portion. But before we move on to that, let's see if we got any funny comments here that we want to read here. And this one is from Bloody Blues, who says that glorified stuntman is what Ric Flair called Mick Foley in his book. And he says he doubts it's coincidental. Heckman says MJF has to win at All Out, all that promo work just to lose to Darby, who said like 8 words of a promo and a bump. Well, Darby doesn't say much. Darby's not a guy. He's not a man of many words. And Carney Business says, I thought it was a great segment aside from the distracting, unnecessary spot with the dudes wearing paper mask. I get why they did it because they kind of had to trap MJF and have him go back, but they didn't need all of those guys. All you needed really was Sting and his bat. At the end of the day, MJF didn't have a weapon and Sting had his bat. So, of course, MJF was going to be like, creeping backwards and he still would have found himself, face-to-face against Darby Allin. So they didn't necessarily need it here. Josh Bowen says, I love this segment. As a longtime Sting fan and Darby fan, I absolutely love this. We got a comment from Snacks for Hire who says this segment would have worked better as a backstage interview promo. They could have done a backstage attack. This could have been like they could have done it, but I didn't mind it though. I honestly didn't mind it because of that one spot with Darby Allin like running through the crowd, running through that like open space. That was good stuff here. Robert Bailey Jr. says MJF was in his pocket promo. Wise one of the better interviews he's done. Everything that rolled out afterwards was meh. Was it mid? All right. And let's get into Andrade versus Cody Rhodes. So, this was a pretty fun match, guys. So we had Cody essentially land several punches on Andrade right at the top. We see Andrade pay homage to Eddie Guerrero by doing the Three Amigos. We see Andrade hit the figure four leg lock on Cody Rhodes, but Cody Rhodes ends up reversing it. Andrade breaks it up really quickly by getting his hands on the ropes, but it does wear him down just a little bit. Then we see Andrade's assistant get involved, and Arn Anderson sees that, so he takes out Andrade's assistant, and then it's during this moment that we see the referee is distracted, so FTR is under the ring, and they use this opportunity to hit Cody in the head with the championship belt, and that is how Andrade is able to get the win in this match. So it wasn't like the greatest match. This was really just to continue furthering this story, so that was perfectly fine. Honestly, I'm just glad that Andrade got the win. He needed this win. He needed it way more than Cody. Was it a great match? No, but it was just really to move forward this story. Afterwards, we end up seeing the Lucha Brothers brawl with FTR, and this is where I wanted to say this. At this point during the show, I lost track of how many brawls we've had on AEW. We've had so many brawls on today's show. I lost track. I think this was the third or fourth brawl of the night. All right, moving on to the main event. Before we do, just a friendly reminder, everybody, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to F4W Online on YouTube. So much good stuff, guys. Make sure you guys check out Wrestling Observer Live from earlier today, because they, Brian and Mike had on Tony Khan, and Tony Khan's talking about tonight's show and all of that good stuff. Really good conversation with them there. So if you missed that episode, I would definitely check it out. Definitely watch it. That's up here on the YouTube channel as well. But just make sure you guys make time to subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version of this, take some time, head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button, because we are almost at 100,000 subscribers. We're like at over 80,000, and we're so close to that 100K mark. But let's go ahead and jump into, and I will say this too. Tony Khan also talked about Cody Rhodes and the feedback that he's been getting from audiences. He talks about Brian. He talks to Brian about that, and basically talks about how Cody Rhodes isn't necessarily getting the intended reactions from the crowd. But Tony Khan just goes on to say that he believes that people are still invested in Cody, whether it's in a good way or a bad way. So he does talk about that too, which I thought was pretty interesting. But anyways, let's get into this main event. We got Miro versus Orange Cassidy. Obviously, this was Miro was the replacement for John Moxley. We talked about that heavily on the top of the show. So we get this match here. Now, I'm going to say this much here. In terms of this match, I think a lot of people were expecting Miro to essentially kill Orange Cassidy in this match, right? I think a lot of people were expecting that. We didn't necessarily get that. In terms of a lot of the main events that we've been seeing on AEW Dynamite, I'll be honest with you guys, this was probably one of my least favorites. I wasn't necessarily crazy about this match because it just wasn't. I think this match, I'll be honest, I think it was hurt by the commercial. The commercial for me in this match, for some reason, just completely took me out of it, where it was like they kicked off this match, right? And like right at the beginning, we see freaking Orange Cassidy go for a tope suicida, but Miro ends up catching him and literally tossing him over like a rag doll. And then I think it was after that spot that we headed into the commercial break. And then we come back from the commercial break, and then there's another really good spot in which you see Orange Cassidy literally jump off the top rope onto Miro, who's on a table on the outside. That was a good spot, but it just wasn't there wasn't that much, I guess you can say. Like, okay, so you get that spot. Miro almost gets counted out. Then you get back into the ring. Cassidy hits the beach break. He goes for the pin, but it ends up being a near fall. And then in the end, you see Miro hit the game over, and Cassidy submits and wins the match. Personally, I thought this match could have been a little bit better. Miro advances. That's what we were all expecting. But I think I would have preferred to see Miro come out and dominate this match than I think that what we saw. I just wasn't really that big of a fan of this actual match as a whole. But either way, Miro advances. He's going to be facing Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson was doing the commentary during this match, so that was perfectly nice to have him on commentary. But there we go. We're going to have Bryan Danielson versus Miro. I'm looking forward to that match. I think it's going to be a good match because Miro will bring a lot of power to this match, and Bryan Danielson will bring a lot of brilliance to that match. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good. But in terms of Miro versus Orange Cassidy, I didn't think that it necessarily delivered. But then again, this match was thrown in last minute, so you can't blame them too much. But let's see what you guys are saying. Let's get some thoughts in here, guys. This is from Mac Hensley, who says it should have been a squash for the same match, but with no stupid picture-in-picture. Bloody Blue says for what it was pretty good. Dale says it's so ironic that two ex-WWE guys will have the chance to go for the title next. And obviously, when you have the closing image of, Miro and Bryan Danielson, you're gonna think that, because even I thought it too. Like right away, I was like, oh my gosh, two former WWE guys. You can't help but have your brain go immediately to that. And let's go through a couple. Oh, so I was wondering why everybody was bringing up Fight. I forget that on Fight TV, you guys don't have any commercial breaks. Okay, for me, obviously, I do not watch on Fight TV. I watch on Sling TV because that's what I have. So that's how I watch. So I do get the commercial there. And let's go through a couple more comments. Hackman says, I keep hearing Denise say Heckman, and I'm like, I didn't type anything. There's another user on here with the name Heckman. So we got Heckman, and then we got Hackman. So there you go. Fun fact. I didn't even know. That's actually pretty darn hilarious. Thank you for sending me that comment. That made me laugh really loud. All right. And let's go through some couple more comments, guys. This one is from Bloody Blues, who says, I really like this match. They have good in-ring chemistry after a lukewarm start. Oh, you're talking about the Andrade match. Oops, sorry. Wrong match, guys. Wrong match. And this one is from Duke Tastrophe, who says, I was hoping Miro would mouth, I remember you, when he saw Danielson. That would have been hilarious. Michael Jefferson says, I like how no one is talking about Danielson versus Miro being two ex-WWE guys, but instead we're just looking forward to two good pro wrestlers, professional wrestling. Okay, I think the reason why... Okay, so we are talking about it because we just talked about it right now. Like, you can't help but have your brain go there, right? Like, I can't help it. Like, I was seeing these guys on WWE TV. I recap all the shows, so I see them there. But in terms of, I don't have a problem with it because you're going to get a different version of these two guys. That's the thing. Like, whatever match they're going to have, it's going to be a different version of what they would have in WWE. Like, there's like the WWE version of them and the AEW version of them. That's the best way that I can describe that, honestly. Javier Arroyo believes that it was perfect the way that it went down. Carney Business says it was a fun match while it lasted, especially that comedy chase spot, but I'm so tired of commercial breaks hurting these Dynamite main events. Unfortunately, you gotta have commercial breaks. What can you do? What can you do? Corey Conway says, Heckman versus Hackman. We got to do it, guys. We got to do it. Alrighty, everybody. That was, oh, wait, hold on. AEW Rampage lineup so far. We're going to have Adam Cole versus John Silver. The TBS Championship Tournament continues. We're going to be seeing Red Velvet versus the Bunny. I think they could go either direction here. I really like Red Velvet. I've been such a fan of hers because I think she's been doing a really good job and she's so fiery. And I almost feel like she keeps getting forgotten about. Like she does good stuff and then she's forgotten about. So I want to see them reward her on that. But then the bunny recently made the news, for that whole ratings war thing. So I also feel she needs to be rewarded too. So I think they could go really any direction here with Red Velvet and Bunny. And then we're going to get CM Punk and Eddie Kingston in a face-to-face. So that should be pretty fun as well. Alrighty, everyone. That is the show. Now we are wrapping things up. I will see you back here on Friday for WWE SmackDown and AEW Rampage Talk. Other than that, do not forget to follow me on Twitter and or on Instagram @_Denise Salcedo. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll see you guys on Friday. Bye, everyone.